Daniel Appleton, 38, was convicted of murdering Amy Appleton, 32, and passerby Sandra Seagrave, 76, on the driveway outside his home in Crawley Down, West Sussex. On December 22, 2019, Appleton was seen dragging his wife, Amy, who he had married a year earlier, out of their home while screaming, "I could murder you." Witnesses said he was puffed up and looked like the Incredible Hulk as he attacked his spouse wearing only his underwear and ranting about being God. He then bludgeoned Ms. Seagrave to death with her own walking stick after she confronted him, before turning on his terrified wife and killing her with the same metal pole. Appleton then threw the crutch down before lifting his arms and shouting at the house saying, "You all think I'm a nutcase, you all think I'm crazy, well I am going to show you." One neighbor said it sounded like a victory speech. He then went back into his house and tried to kill himself, stabbing himself at least 5 times in the chest with a large kitchen knife, cutting his neck and slashing his thighs in an attempt to cut the femoral arteries. But he was saved by paramedics. Appleton admitted killing the 2 women, after waking from a coma 2 weeks later, but denied murder and denied consuming mind-altering drugs. He claimed he had suffered a catastrophic mental breakdown. Traces of the drug LSD were found in samples of his hair and nails. Police believed he took it on a night out with friends before the murders. It can cause hallucinations, unpredictable distortions of the senses and feelings of paranoia. Mr. Appleton ran a successful garage business and had no criminal record, nor a history of mental illness or substance abuse. Appleton bowed his head in the dock and wept as his wife's mother Linda described the uncontrollable distress and despair her family have experienced. In a statement read out in court, Linda said, "One moment we were looking forward to a special Christmas and New Year, and the next our world came crashing down around us. Our lives were turned catastrophically upside down in the most dreadful way possible. Not only has this devastated family and friends but the lives of 30 children she was teaching at the time." Sentencing Appleton, Mr. Justice Nicholas Hilliard told him that this was not a case of insanity. He added, "I sentence you on the basis that you took a new psychoactive substance and under the influence of this committed these murders. Anyone who takes new psychoactive substances, which are Class A drugs, is interfering with their own mental processes and responsible for the consequences." Appleton admitted killing both women but denied murder, claiming it was the result of a psychotic episode. He told the court he loved his wife more than she will ever know and she loved him, and the couple, who had recently returned from honeymoon, were planning on starting a family. He claimed he had no memory of the horrific killings. However, the jury rejected his claims and found him guilty of both murders. An eyewitness said Appleton enjoyed what he had done, waving the crutch above his head as he stood over her lifeless body before shouting a victory speech to his neighbors. Members of the public rushed to the aid of the 2 women, but despite their best efforts, and those of emergency services attending the scene, both were pronounced dead. Appleton told a jury his memory of the savage killings was like a videotape on fast forward. Police found him naked in a pool of his own blood in the family kitchen. Appleton blamed anxiety over starting a family and stress at work for the tragic events. Witnesses at the scene described Mr. Appleton's behavior as agitated, angry and like he was possessed. The jury determined that drug use was a factor in causing the psychotic episode which led to the deaths of the 2 victims. During the second day of his evidence, Appleton offered an emotional apology to the families of the women he killed from the witness box. He was asked how he felt about the deaths by his counsel Lewis Power. He said, "I'm devastated. Absolutely devastated by what has happened. I don't know if they are here, or where they are, but I just want Amy's family to know that I'm devastated by what has happened and that I didn't mean to hurt anyone. Amy was very special to us all. She was loving and caring and she was just always so happy." Appleton said he has no memory of Mrs. Seagrave or her stick. Following the attack, Appleton tried to take his own life. He jumped out of the loft, before throwing himself down the stairs. He used a large kitchen knife to stab himself 5 times in the chest, slashing both of his upper thighs attempting to cut arteries, and cut his neck, head, calf muscle, and forearm in what was described by the prosecution as the most determined suicide attempt. Appleton and his wife met when she was 10. She was best friends with Appleton's younger sister and they started dating when she was 16. Having graduated from Brighton University, Ms. Appleton studied to become a teacher. Mr. Appleton turned on his wife that morning with no warning or cause, 2 innocent lives taken in yet another senseless murder. He was sentenced to a minimum of 26 years in prison. Reese Hancock, 40, has been jailed for 31 years after creeping into his former marital home and brutally murdering Helen Army, 39, and her new partner, Martin Griffiths, 48, on New Year's Day, 2020. The jealous thug carried out the brutal attack after finding out his ex-partner had a new boyfriend, following the breakdown of their marriage. Ms. Army suffered 66 stab wounds and injuries while her partner suffered 37 stab wounds during the brutal attack as they lay defenseless in bed. PE teacher Ms. Army was found with her head in the lap of Mr. Griffiths in a pool of blood just after 4 a.m. on New Year's Day. Despite the efforts of paramedics, Ms. Army and dad of 2 Mr. Griffiths, a company director, were pronounced dead at the scene. Hancock dialed 999 and confessed to what he had done and told police who arrived at the scene, "I am hardly going to deny it, look at me. I have clearly done it, haven't I? I have their blood all over my clothes." He had earlier told his mum that he felt like killing them both and said he wanted his wife to feel the same level of pain he felt, before traveling to the property with 2 knives. Ms. Army, who had walked out on Hancock just a few months earlier, was stabbed with such ferocity that the knife's handle went into her stomach. A court heard how a pathologist described the murder scene as a bloodbath and the most violent attack he had ever seen in his career. Sentencing, Judge Nemal Shant said, "What you did on that night is to deprive 2 families of the people they loved. No sentence or anything I do will leave the undoubted void left by Helen and Martin in their families' lives. It left your 3 children without a mother and left Martin Griffiths and his family without their father. On the 1st of January, as the evening went on, you made the decision to kill not just Helen but also Martin. This was a premeditated killing. You were making inquiries to find out what was going on in Helen's life. Things had been brewing in your mind for some days. You went into your mother's bedroom and declared the man was at your house. You made your decision to kill them both. You had driven to the address earlier despite drinking. You wanted to kill them both. She thought you were talking about your feelings rather than actually killing them. You armed yourself with cutting knives, one 18 centimeters long and the other 30 centimeters. You told her it was you or them. You told her not to stop you, but she tried her best to stop you that evening. The ambulance service described the scene as a bloodbath. You inflicted 66 injuries on Helen Hancock with 5 on the torso and 2 on her breasts. Some of the incised wounds were caused by severe force and there were a substantial number of defensive injuries. Martin Griffiths sustained 37 injuries, with the most serious the attack on his neck which severed his jugular vein. There is no sign of blood beyond the bedroom which suggests they did not make it out. The appropriate starting point is 30 years. There is evidence you had mental difficulties that provide a backdrop to this attack. It was substantially premeditated and pre-planned. Your mother made efforts to stop you, but nothing would deter you. Both knives were formidable and you had the intent to kill rather than cause bodily harm. You went in the back door and the attack must have happened when they were in bed defenseless. I give you credit for the plea, which makes it a minimum of 31 years. That is concurrent on both counts. He added, his intention from first to last was to kill. This was committed with the coldest of blood. They were much loved by not only their families but by friends, neighbors, and colleagues, and I know their deaths have devastated everyone who knew them.